Let me call to order the November 19th Charter Revision Commission special meeting. Could you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. Make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, quick chairman update. Brian McCann is, I just want to go on the record. We are recording, yes, FairTV?
Yeah, we're on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Brian McCann did make us aware he was unable to attend the meeting tonight. There has been a couple comments from the public about meeting minutes and why we haven't seen the meeting minutes. And I just wanted to clarify for everyone. There are so we cannot discuss or vote on meeting minutes until we have a regular meeting. And the regular meeting there's some rule about having 1 month of advance notice. So anyway, we have not received any of the meeting notice of the meeting minutes yet, but until December 3rd, we are unable to vote on the meeting minutes. So for the public that's wondering where the meeting minutes are, that is where the meeting minutes will be discussed on December 3rd. Speaking of schedule, Jen Carpenter asked me to make sure that we talk about our long-term schedule. And so I just wanted everybody to be prepared to discuss on December 3rd, potentially all of our meetings out until May. So, and that would be 2 meetings every month up to and including, thank you, May and our deadline. If we have to add a meeting or delete a meeting along the way, we can certainly call a special meeting and add it. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. I had a conversation with Jen Carpenter and Dave Kelly, a couple of conversations with Dave Kelly this week. So Jane was nice enough to forward all of the comments that we received online through the CRC group email to Jen Carpenter. All of them will be uploaded to our website under the, I forget what it's called. There's a thing there called files, and I think it's files, right? Everything will be in there. So and what I've requested is that each individual email we received is a separate document. So if Chris DeWitt sent in a note and said something and it was 2 sentences, I want that to be a separate, whatever it is, document, whatever. If Chris DeWitt sent something in and had 35 pages, I want that to be separate. I just want these all to be separate, and then we can look at them individually and parse them out.
Clarifying question?
Please.
So you're saying just public comments? Now you're using Chris DeWitt as an example.
Yes, sorry. Taxpayer Chris DeWitt, not Commissioner Chris DeWitt, right, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Can I ask a question too? I don't think Eric Son's document is in those files. I couldn't find it on the website today, so maybe they can add that too.
They are not on there yet. Jen was going to try to make an effort to get them up this week.
Great, thank you.
I did check, yes. So thank you for that. And what a good segue. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can all see this. If I do what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And this stupid toolbar always gets in the, can you see this toolbar?
No, only you can.
Oh, good. Okay, so it's just blocking my stuff. Okay. So Dave Kelly sent me a note yesterday, day before. And he goes, I'm concerned, the CRC email, there's a lot of spam, which I don't know if you've noticed or not. There is some spam that's been collected on there, which I'm not really crazy about. He says, I've been discussing a new format for which to solicit information from the public. And I sent you all a test of that contact the commission today. I don't know if any of you have received it and seen it. But what I
Yes.
wanted to walk
Yes.
through, oh, good. I just wanted to walk through, at least in a preliminary way, what it is, and then I just wanted to get a sense of the body if we agree that this is the right way to move forward rather than the email. So if you can see my screen, this is our website. And if you go down here, there's a little thing that says contact the commission. If you click on that, you have to, now, this is what I really like about this. Forces you to put your name. If you don't, so I tested this out. If you don't put your first name or your name or your email or your street address, you don't get, this doesn't send. Now, we all know that what we want from everyone is their name. We have to have their street address, email address, maybe not so much, but for contacting. So if you fill in all these things, then and hit send. Now, and you can also tag files, which is really nice. But if you do all of this, what you get is this. So this is what I sent you today. So my name, my email address, my street address, and then whatever you want to say. And this seems like a lot better format than the emails that we've been receiving. And I sent a quick note to Dave Kelly tonight to figure out how we can take each one of these data chunks, if you will, and save them individually to the information folder, that this folder here, where it says files and documents.
So Chris, do we know if there's a text limit onto what people can write, a character limit? The memo
Good
field?
question. I don't know that. When you fill it out, there doesn't seem to be any limitation.
Okay.
So just as a, and let me stop sharing this for a second, just okay. So I want to take a sense of the body if, what you guys think. I'm in favor of using this. I think this is a much more efficient way of getting data. It appears as if it's going to have the right information we want. And if it's all going to look the same, I think that's only going to enhance our ability to take this data. So is there any discussion about it?
I would just be concerned about somebody's thoughts being truncated because there was a limitation on characters. So I think I'd want to make sure, because some of these that we're getting are rather lengthy, and I wouldn't want anybody to feel that they were prohibited from expressing their entire thoughts.
Maybe we could say there's a limit and then they have the alternative of writing it on a sheet of paper and
attaching
uploading it, but
Right.
that way they're not frustrated if they go
Exactly
through.
right. If there is a limit, I agree, it should state that there's a limit.
Yeah, it does state.
I'm just making notes, so I'm not ignoring anyone here. I just want to make sure I capture that. I'll ask the question of Dave. And yeah, I agree with Commissioner Wackerman. If I know that when I'm on a website and it says 500 characters, and as you type, it counts down. You're like, well, you have 50 characters left. So then well, I better either stop what I'm saying or send a second email. So I will ask that question.
Clarifying question, Chris, does it change the CRC email at all? Do we still use that?
So the thought would be we would not use the CRC email anymore, based on the fact of the, again, we've been receiving a lot of spam. I wouldn't say a lot. We're receiving spam, and it would replace the CRC email. Now, if we do choose to go this route, where I showed you that box that says contact the commission, we can also change that. If you clicked on that, we could also have it send it to the CRC email. But I think the preferred, again, my opinion only, the preferred solution is this new app.
Well, I guess I hear that, and I really like from a public comment, it would seem to me there's still a need to be able to email this body. I mean, something as simple as we need to email out what's the schedule of a meeting or something like that. So I would just like, what's the solution for that?
Okay, So I guess what you're asking is, could we keep it in place maybe just for our own use, even though we shouldn't all be emailing each?
I'm not saying we have to keep that email, but I would think that there is a need for some amount of communication within the group that doesn't come across that's not appropriate really for a forum, you know?
That would really only come from Chris to us. We what Karen was saying, when we all email each other, that could be construed as a meeting, so we should not be doing that.
Cause that's a FOIA violation if we haven't noticed the meeting.
Right.
Well, can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, sure.
What we talked about in our first meeting was that if there's not discussion, it's not a meeting, but you can email information.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like what you emailed
Mhm.
was probably substantive enough
Mhm.
that people might say, well, that's something that should have been noticed. It's arguable, like it's unclear, but it can
Correct.
be. Yeah. So I'm just being
Yeah.
like overly cautious maybe.
No. No, and Commissioner Wackerman is absolutely correct, right? So what really should happen, and we can use Jen Carpenter for this, is that we did include in our backup for this meeting, the spreadsheet that I'd like this for Commissioner Treshik to talk about tonight. So it is in the backup. Now, it probably would have been more appropriate for that to have been sent to me or Jane, Commissioner Biagini, I should say, or Jen Carpenter for distribution.
Got it, okay.
So really, we should, if we wanna send something to the group, we send it to you or Jen. And then so it's a hub kind of a process.
Right.
And
Do we have each other's emails? I don't know if we do, sorry.
Does that avoid the FOIA issue then?
Yeah.
Yeah, cause especially if it's more than 4 people, then we may have a meeting, sorry. what were you gonna say?
No,
Right.
just, right, cause we're supposed to get documents
Yeah, I
from
would
Jen or
think so,
from you
yeah.
guys as the.
Correct.
So that's
Like a
okay.
We're just supposed to get documents from Jennifer, or the documents that we're going to discuss at this meeting should be provided as backup. And then those documents are again public record, and they're in the agenda and minutes portion of the website.
Sounds good. I think this is great, and we just went through this with the RTM last night because we've been having issues with the emails. And Dave showed us this and we all felt like that's a big improvement. Because we can't even see how to respond to constituents when we get the email using the current, because their email isn't there unless they go out of their way to
Oh,
put
their
it.
signature?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, so they think we're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a very similar situation with there's a Board of Finance group email, or
Right.
you could send, and a lot of times, again, people would make their statement and not leave their name or not leave their address, and there were a lot of times where I would want it to respond and I had no email, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I really like about this system. All those things that in the past I would have really liked to have had every time you're forced to actually put this in here.
Mhm. Good.
So I'll make, just for a sense of the body, I'll make a sense of the body, I don't know if it's not a motion, but just what are your thoughts about moving forward with the new format versus the email? I don't even know how to call a sense of the body vote. Who is in favor, I guess, who's in favor of it without calling a real vote?
I am.
I am.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. I'll tell Dave that he doesn't have anything to do and we can move forward.
Well, I would, Chris, excuse me, I would just like to make a note of the character limit on the form itself, so.
Yep. And I've got that, so I'm gonna send a note to Dave this evening to either tell me that there's no limit or put, you know what? I'll have him either put the character limit or the fact that there's no limit.
That's great.
It's a good idea.
That is doing.
Yeah, format, like you can't
Mhm.
do underlining or really emphasize it with like some obnoxious 50
They
point.
can just attach a Word document.
They can attach, I know,
But you're
but
right.
that's something that, we might say, no formatting, is possible.
Not for nothing, a character limit might not be a bad thing. I know some of them, and then we're gonna talk about this, in a few minutes, but some of the emails, even though very well intended, do cover a lot of topics. And I thought to myself, reading one the other day, I'm like, boy, this would have been nice if this were broken into like 4 or 5 different documents for for me to read. I feel like when I get it in one big email, I feel like it's a little more confusing in that regard, so. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Next agenda item. A discussion of list of data solicitation inputs. And I put on there, basically, who should the commission solicit inputs from? This is in your backup. I'm also willing and able, I think. Let me see here. I think I'm sharing the agenda right now, which is not what I wanted to share, but I can do this. Yes. No, I don't wanna make this so small, so if we have to scroll around, I'm perfectly happy to do that. So I was looking at, what Jane was nice enough, Commissioner Biagini, sorry, I apologize. Was nice enough to go on the website and pulled down a list of all of the commissions and every other thing in town that we think has any relevance. At first, I looked at this list and I said, wow, this is really a long list. But, after we discussed it, we don't want to leave anybody off this list. So my recommendation for discussion tonight is to send this out to every one of the commissions and boards and whatever else on here. And if they, and give them a time limit. And if they choose not to respond, well, at least we've asked everyone, give them the opportunity. And I will note that I looked at this today, and the one thing that I left off is I think we should add to this list the RTM moderator, and I defer to Commissioner Wackerman. Is the moderator the right person, you think, to speak on behalf of the RTM?
Yeah, I do think so, and I was gonna ask you to add that, yes.
Okay, yeah, that was definitely an error on my part.
She has sent some already, yeah. She has sent some comments in writing, but it's still.
Yes, absolutely, and I did see those from Ms. Spolier, yes. Some of the ones up top, you'll notice that those were my recommendations that we added to list, but everything from affordable housing down is off the website. So I think it's very important that we get solicitation from the Board of Finance Chair, the Board of Ed Chair. Even though we have a document from the Board of Selectmen, when we were all nominated at that meeting, I thought at least Ms. Vitale, or select person Vitale, did say that she would like to give additional comments. So I think we should give her and select person Kupchak another opportunity. And if they don't have anything, hey, no harm done, right? So any discussion about this list?
Can I ask a question generally before, are you
Please.
thinking you'll be soliciting written comments from them? Or did you wanna have them come before you if they want to, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, good. Thank you for bringing that up. My thought is we start with email, or maybe we just send them to the website and say, please respond that way. This is the way I was thinking about it. We should email solicit all of these leaders of all these commissions and boards and whatever else via email. And I'll pick on Lori Charlton for a few minutes here. If the Board of Finance Chair comes back and she has 35 pages of recommendations, I'd say, hey, Lori, can you please come to our next meeting and let's ask you questions. If she comes back with 2 recommendations that are pretty cut and dry, then I'd say we wouldn't have to do that.
And are you thinking that we'll start, I'm wondering how long that will take, and do we start working on language before we've heard from everybody and then just know we can change it, or and I guess I'm thinking cart before the horse, or which way do we,
Yeah.
or, you know, yeah.
I was gonna recommend this evening that we, or whatever this list comes out to be, that we ask everyone to provide information by December 3rd, which is our next meeting.
Mhm.
Sounds like a very short amount of time, but I've spoken to a lot of people that would be getting this, and I don't think this is, and frankly, we've already heard from the fire commission, and so some of the inputs we already have. My thought is that I'd like to wait till we have all these inputs. But again, in Commissioner Biagini and I spoke about this the other day on the phone. I don't want to wait till May to get all these inputs, right? So we have to have a definite cutoff. So I'd like to send the initial draft out and ask for a response by December 3rd, and then maybe give another December date for the no kidding, this is the real cutoff date. Is anyone have any objections to waiting for this input?
Yes, I do.
I just had a clarifying question, Commissioner DeWitt.
Please, Commissioner Pimlico.
The presumption is the public hearing, is that limited only to the public, or can other peer cohorts, constituents of the government come to those meetings?
Public.
Right?
Anyone,
Right?
any
Right,
taxpayer.
Right. Okay. So you're right, Chris. I think Commissioner DeWitt, if representatives have already come from the government, we're probably doing belts and suspenders, which I like. I like the idea of sending it out broadly and giving them an opportunity to respond. I think you're right.
I think I saw Commissioner Trachik's hand up.
Right, so thanks, Commissioner DeWitt. I would argue that there's a good reason to start moving forward based on some of the input we have. If nothing else, there's real input around process, which I think we can be talking about. There's also the opportunity for us just to roll up our sleeves and start to work, as a team. And I think there are a few topics that are probably a little bit easier for us to work through.
Sure.
Example, meetings of notice, for that type of thing. How do we, maybe that's something we take some of those easier topics to start going on the 3rd, but 100% agree, like don't touch board and commissions until like January, but I think there are some other topics that we can realistically start to work on rather than waiting to really start substantial work. Okay.
Now, I would agree with that. And I mean, our next agenda item, which is one of great interest to me, is, kind of this is the who, kind of the how. And I know we're going to hear from you tonight about your recommendations. So yes, I guess I would agree. There's so much data in there right now. It's really unbelievable, because I don't feel like we've solicited a lot of data. So there probably is some opportunity to start working on some of the, I'll call it the low hanging fruit, right?
Right.
I'm a bit confused because this is the only meeting we could be working on it before the December 3rd meeting, because that's our next meeting. So I'm not really sure what we're talking about.
I'm assuming the fact that, it's not good, these email, the request's not gonna go out till later this week, then it's Thanksgiving, then it's the 3rd, so we're not gonna have a lot. And I think the question was not so much wait till the 3rd, I think the question is more wait for all the input.
Right.
We can work on it ourselves all 24/7, but together as a group, we can't work on it either. We only can work on it here or the 3rd, which is when our deadline is. So we're not really.
Well, no, the 3rd, so the 3rd is the first deadline I would put on all the respondents. And what I think Commissioner Trachik is saying, and this is how I'm interpreting it. If we receive all these inputs on the 3rd, the meeting of the night of the 3rd, we won't have all that data disseminated out to do real substantive work, right? But on the 3rd, I think what he's saying is we should have an agenda item to start talking about topic A without having these inputs. Is that what you thought, Commissioner?
Yes.
Does that make sense? I guess so. Well, and then my only other point is I'd like to work with this list, cause we're missing people. And then there's some folks on here that don't exist anymore, so I'd just like to clean it up.
And Commissioner DeWitt, didn't Jen Carpenter also took a look at this list, right? And she did do some cleanup to it.
You did.
I
You
just
did.
don't think we have that in the backup here.
Oh.
No, this is, I think that's, well, so
Jen's list.
what Jen Carpenter did is there's some overlap. So some of these, and it's escaping me right now, but there's a couple of things that, like there was something under,
Joint retirement board.
oh, yeah, thank you very much, right? So the Joint Retirement Investment Board, there's also another, so Police and Retirement Board, they're the same.
Yeah.
So again, if we solicit the Joint Retirement Investment Board, we're gonna get the Police and Retirement and Fire Retirement Board at the same time. Commissioner McHenry.
Is the commission empowered to put a deadline on public comment?
Yes.
Is the commission empowered to put a deadline on solicited comment from advisory boards or commissions within the town? And do you set that date first in a backup to sending out an email to understand what kind of time frame we're looking at?
I believe we can impose a deadline for transmittal of this data, yes. I'm not sure I understand the second part of your comment.
Well, you know, if we're looking for public comment, we have the right to put a deadline on public comment.
Sorry. Well, no, I mean, so if we sent this list out today and everybody sent me the inputs tomorrow, we would still be able, I mean, right up until the last day of the process, to be frank, we could still take public comment.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I'm
So
just
a
saying that.
deadline- a deadline's not a deadline.
Yeah, it's a deadline for the,
Oh,
I don't know what the right word is, you know?
No, I think what you're asking for the respect of these individual processes or these committees to respect our process, to come in at a date and time certain, so that we can have an adequate time to consider their opinions or their observations. I was just trying to figure out if there's a hard stop, or if this is kind of one we're saying, look, respect our process, help us here, here's a date.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Please respect our process, give us some time to do our work. If the day after you submit everything and you're on the Historic District Commission, you're like, oh, I found something else, then please give us another submission. I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna get to a point where we're going to have a lot of input and we're gonna try to parse that into some manageable data chunks, and we'll start talking about it. At some point, you know, unless it's something really groundbreaking, we're gonna have to start limiting input and focusing more on output, right?
Yeah, there's a time that you have to start writing your, term paper instead of doing research.
Right, exactly. So, Commissioner Ho, who are we missing? Let me take it.
I don't know why I didn't bring that, but I have it at home, sorry, so I will send that, but yeah.
Could you email it to me and then
Picture, cause there's a lot of them.
that's terrific. Then I'll compare and get one final list. I'll send it back to you if that's okay, just to make sure we didn't.
I just went on the website, so I'm kind of.
That's where I
surprised.
pulled this from.
Some of
Yeah,
it's
this is,
on there that's no longer in existence.
Well, that's true,
Yeah.
yeah. And it even says.
so give me a for example. I mean, I haven't gone through this in painful detail, but
The Racial Equity and Task Force and Justice Task Force, it is gone now, it's disbanded. And Strategic
Oh.
Plan Committee,
Yeah, that's the other one, yeah.
yeah.
Strategic Plan Committee, okay.
Can we also consider asking department heads for input, because some of these things are really relevant to them?
Well, that leads me to a question, is that almost, cause I went through and I assigned it to a department and there were only like 2 that didn't have an assigned department. And it would seem to me that if we have a board or commission, it should be working with someone on staff. And there should be a corollary,
Except
because.
with the RTM. have anyone, but you're right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
No, you're not really.
It's a very good point, you know, we had,
You're right.
you know, we had unsolicited comment from, well, that was solicited comment, sorry, from a member of the fire commission at our last meeting. So it begs the question, you know, do we wanna poke Chief Curran too, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're really doing the day-to-day stuff, so it could be something in the charter trips them up in their day-to-day work. I don't know, it seems like it would be good to ask.
And building on,
That's a great suggestion.
just to build on Commissioner Hoag's comment, I agree. I was thinking about it more from the lens of there are recommended changes from the Board of Select Persons to, you know, the town attorney, the tree warden, Department of Public Works head, et cetera. Actually soliciting feedback from the potential town employees who will have change done to them, you know, as a result of this, I think would be good to do. And I think expanding that to include department heads is definitely a good idea too.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because we do have the town clerk as a department head, so we've, you know, already received inputs from our town clerk. So we can certainly add that to the list. So hold on, so let's do this real time so that we don't have to go through this. So are we talking about every department head?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why not ask everybody, like, just
Yep.
be, right?
Right, but what I was saying though was just having a commission should have an associated staff person. Forget solicitation of comment on the charter, just generally, you know, why would we have a board or commission if it doesn't correlate with something
Like,
that's,
we should make sure
That-
that it
yeah.
does, yeah.
so I don't know if that's a charter thing to say, but it just seems like it's a floating board that doesn't really relate to what the operational government is.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, should any of that be in an ordinance? Well, I think there's a power to restructure the government outside of the charter if necessary. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I would say, Commissioner Hoag, we do have, if we choose to discuss it in detail, a question around how much should we standardize the boards and commissions, so that probably will come up as a part of our work, is looking at the different commissions and.
Well, as an example, DPW is a great example of how we don't follow our own rules. The way the job, the org chart, if they ever were to create one, doesn't match. So that would be an example of reorganization.
Right, and there's no Public Works Commission. So we would have to go to a department head, right?
There are plenty of public work commissions, they're just not called.
Well, you know what, yeah, exactly, right, yeah, there's a bunch that fall underneath, right?
Right.
But I mean, it's like the Board of Finance, right? The Board of Finance doesn't really speak for the CFO. So it's a board that is, I mean, that might not be a great example. I guess when you talk about like I don't know, I can't think of it going right at the top of my head, but
I'm not saying a board or commission speaks for somebody, but that there's a corollary, that there's a way that the board coordinates its efforts with a staff position, a staff department.
And that's not always clear.
There's just a few that I wasn't sure. And I don't know what I did with that piece of paper, because I spent hours on it.
Oh.
Sorry.
But I mean, I think you're making a case that we should not only solicit inputs from the commission, the commissioner or lead commissioner or of an individual commission, but also the department. I think that's where you're headed, right?
Yeah.
No, I think that's an excellent, I tell you, I didn't even think about that, so.
So Commissioner DeWitt, in addition to that, and some of these may technically be department heads, I don't know, internal auditor. The recommendation is to change the reporting line. The fire and police chiefs, probably department heads, to DPW department head, town attorney. Not sure if that's a department head. And then tree warden. Department of one, I'm not sure.
DPW.
Okay.
Well, tree warden is not a department head, is he?
Well, just more of the,
No, he's not.
maybe there's a good reason why the term should be 1 year. but that's one of the recommendations we have to address from the board of select person.
They go as high as 2, by state statute.
Yeah.
But you're saying if they're impacted, then it would be
Sure, if
good
there's
to-
impact, then give them a chance to input.
He wants it 2 years.
Well, yeah, right.
That'd be helpful.
Cause I.
Yeah, and I'll,
Forestry committee, so.
and again, you know, we don't have to take all, we should take all these inputs, but we don't have to comply with all of them. When one of the
Right.
last things I did in the Board of Finance is we redid the purchasing policy. I ran a purchasing policy committee. And my statement to everyone was, listen, if everybody loves this purchasing policy, it's the worst policy we've ever written. Everybody can't love this stuff, right? Because everybody loves it, that means there's big holes, and if everybody's happy, there's something wrong, right? Now, the charter is probably a little bit different than purchasing policy, but there will certainly be somebody at the end of the day that doesn't like something we'll recommend or will end in the final charter.
It's gonna impact collective.
So how should we handle this? So, because I would like to start soliciting these comments immediately.
Yeah.
I just had a statement, transparency is a great thing, solicitation is a great thing. The fact that we've created a charter revision commission and given public notice to the town of Fairfield and the residents of the town of Fairfield is an invitation and solicitation for input and information. Far be it for me to question the fact, but if I'm a department head at the town of Fairfield and there's something in the charter that isn't working for me, you don't need to send me a memo. I'm at your door. That's what the Board of Selectmen is all about. That's what notice is all about. I'm not saying we don't notice these people, but we're kind of bending over backwards. And you know, in my view, beating a dead horse about who we need to talk to or how we need to talk to them, because there's a charter revision commission. The charter is a very important thing. If you got a piece of the action, then get in the game. So I don't know if we have to worry so much about offending people, but
It may be, yeah,
I'm
it
just-
is a fair point.
it's just an observation.
I wonder if though a lot of it is being as open as we can, like the gesture.
I'm all
I think
for
is
it.
really important, right? And maybe a
Yeah.
reminder to people who may have forgotten, I don't know, but.
But we're
Yeah.
twisting ourselves in a pretzel about whether it's a department head versus somebody on behalf of the department. The Board of Finance doesn't speak for the financial officer. I get all that, I respect all that, but you know what? Comes a point in time that people kind of have a responsibility for their job and their input, and I think the selectmen and the Board of Selectmen have already put it out there. But
I would absolutely agree, and let me just say this, just my, you know, opinion as 1/8 of this commission. After this solicitation, there's no more. Everything else is, if you wanna write, if you wanna click on the website and give us it, that's great. But I also spoke to Jason Bushbaum, who's our attorney, the attorney signed to this process, and I asked him, I said, hey, and he's been involved in this from he's been on charter revision commissions, he's been an attorney working with them, he's got a lot of experience in varied roles. And I said, what do you think about a mailer? And he goes, Chris, you're crazy.
Oh,
He goes, it's a lot of expense, and he goes for what I would consider not a lot of return. So after this list, and I would agree with Commissioner McHenry that maybe we are twisting ourselves up a little bit. I want to get this list as good as we can possibly get it, solicit all this stuff, and then move on to the hard work, right?
Yeah.
So how would you like to handle this list? So I'm happy, I think between Commissioner Biagini and I, we can modify this list. Would everyone be okay letting us kind of have the final say on what this list is? And then Jen Carpenter has offered, once we send the list, she has all the emails, we can send all this stuff out. I'm gonna create a kind of a introductory note to everyone who get this, asking for their solicitation in time frame. So is everyone okay with us having that responsibility moving forward?
sure,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Commissioner Biagini, I'm signing you up for a lot of stuff.
Chris, that reminds me, I didn't know if you had any reaction to the email we got about whether we should have a secretary, and I am not volunteering by asking this question. I'm very.
That way to me.
But I wonder if, it was interesting to see what a secretary does, and I don't know what you
Yeah,
thought.
I asked, attorney, it's Bushbaum, right? Am I saying that right? Buxbaum, excuse me, attorney, Buxbaum. I asked him about that and he said, as far as he knows, there's no reason, there's no rule that says we can't go without a secretary. Now, I forget who sent the note, but I think they were making the statement in regards to Robert's rules, right?
Yes, and then apparently the secretary has certain tasks. It was Kathleen Griffin, I think, who wrote it.
Oh, it was Miss Griffin. Yes, I guess in the absence of Prue or anyone else as a recording secretary, I guess the responsibility would fall to the secretary. Now, we've got to commit, First Selectman Gerber has told me that we will always have a recording secretary. And whether that recording secretary is in person or online like she is tonight, or listens to this thing a week from now and takes the notes on her own. So, I mean, I don't feel a need to move forward with a secretary unless anyone else on the commission has a desire to do so.
No, I think it was actually for other tasks than recording, but I think if anything comes up, we can all help you and Jane with anything, extra. So I don't feel like the need.
The only thing I was gonna say is, from a role of helping keeping us organized, I'm happy to play a secretarial role. I'm not a minute taker though, I'm not good at that, to be real. So I don't know if that's an official secretary aspect or not, or that's an area where we need help, but that's an area where I'm willing to help.
I haven't had any indication so far that anyone in this commission isn't willing to help with everything, right? And there's been a lot of good inputs going around already. So, like I said, I'm not really worried about this. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's no action at this point, unless somebody shows me something that forces us to do it. Is that okay with everyone else?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Wanted to ask because it was.
Okay. So,
One last clarifying question.
Yeah.
Commissioner DeWitt, on the list, I'm assuming that as we go deeper into a topic, for example, the town manager one is an example, we could ask for like the current town manager to come in. Or someone else who's an expert in that area to come into this meeting, right? We're not precluding ourselves by the creation. Okay.
No, absolutely. This is the data, this is kind of the written solicitation for information. And like I said, and I've watched over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching some of the old commission and some of the speakers had just wonderful things, and I think there's still relevant data, even if we wanted to watch the old videos. But yes, if we don't feel comfortable without getting input from, like you said, town manager, yes, I would absolutely expect us to call them in and have them come into a session or call in. This doesn't preclude us from doing anything as far as I'm concerned.
And I guess related, Commissioner DeWitt, as you're talking to Jen Carpenter, is there a town org chart? I would love to see that. I don't know if one exists. Oh, we're shaking your head. There doesn't one? If there is a town org chart, it would be great to have one.
That's a
Actually
good
would
idea.
be very good to have.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
They should make one.
Mhm.
Here is not one.
Who is shaking their head? I'm sorry.
All of us.
Mary.
Mary, yeah.
I'm not aware of one. Do you guys think there is?
I know there's
No.
not.
No,
Okay.
I've asked.
Okay.
I've asked.
we're agreeing it would be really good to
Org
have.
chart.
Well, if nothing else, that might be a recommendation for the charter, that there be an official organizational chart, right?
Organizational chart?
Of the town. Have you ever seen one? I've never.
I don't think I've ever seen one, no.
Seen them for building committees.
Mm,
No, not the whole town though.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
I was
don't.
I'm gonna note also on our webpage, we don't have a membership list. We should ask to have that.
We do if you scroll down. I couldn't find it today.
Oh, really?
If you scroll down on the homepage, we're
Oh, 'cause
down.
you-
I mean, the members of our commission?
Yeah, it's there, but you have to go down a
Oh,
lot.
there it is.
It's not like a button you push, you have
Usually
to,
it's on the, okay.
I know, on the left, right? Yeah.
It's weird.
Sorry, it's
Never
really
mind.
finicky here, so I don't know what this thing's doing.
We're good.
That was me.
Okay, got it. All right, let me get back to what I was saying before. Okay, great. Okay, well, I think so. We'll work on this list and get it out, and we'll get this to Jen Carper and start soliciting these comments. So good. If that's it, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate all those inputs. What have we here? Let me get back to my agenda here. So this is the agenda item 5 is the discussion on how the commission should review the data. And Commissioner Tresick, I'm having such a, sorry, I apologize. Has actually given us a great framework, I think, to
Yeah.
you know, as I said in the last meeting, you know, how do you eat an elephant, you know, one bite at a time, right? I think this is a great way to segment this work out and work there. So I would ask you, Eric, if you take us through this, and I'm happy to share the document. I remember where the heck I put
Another
it. Oh, yeah, here it is.
Kelly,
Yep.
if those comments from that form go into a spreadsheet, that could then make it much easier for you to keep track. Cause
Right.
Google Forms does that, so.
I apologize, I'm sharing the wrong screen.
So as Commissioner DeWitt is pulling that together, what I'm talking about are the item that was in the backup as far as the proposed, is it like Word document type of thing, proposed organizational structure for CRC work, and also the Google Sheets list of all the information. And so after that, the ones that's on the screen. And so the question really was, how do we organize our work? And, you know, to me, as I think about it, if you have different options, you can essentially go through every single input as you get it. You can actually start with the actual charter and go article by article, paragraph by paragraph. Or we can, what I'm proposing is that we actually start by gathering and organizing the input, recognizing some of the input will be duplicative, which is actually a good thing. And all of the input can be sorted into or similar categories. And then talk about on the input on a categorical basis. And as we do that, we leverage the expertise that we have across this commission. I use the example of Commissioner Biagini from our ethics background at GE. We do have several ethics related inputs that we should consider. It would make sense for her to help us lead that discussion and help us understand some of the nuances of that. Or Commissioner DeWitt from a financial perspective, given his background on the Board of Finance, there are several financially related topics. Or Commissioner Ackerman related to the RTM. So we do have various experts here on the board who could help us kind of work through the various, categories as we go through this. I think that'd be a good way for us to organize the work. We also could do it in a way where we save the harder stuff a little bit later after we start to build our working relationships, because we are a team, we're early in our forming, norming, and storming. And so that will help build how we work as a team as we start to move forward. And then what I would recommend is, and I've definitely been getting this feedback as I talk to members of the community, is more public input the better. Totally recognize the point that Commissioner McNerney mentioned earlier, but also finding a way where we can, after we've gone through the categories, that we can have another public meeting that's not required. We're required to have one that we just did and then one at the end, but do one in the middle and share not the legalese, but share the conceptual idea. And the example I would say there is, I'm just going to assume that we'll agree from a meeting notice perspective that we're not going to require, if we can, like it has to be in newspapers, that we're going to come up with something else. And so conceptually would say, we are going to be recommending that we update the charter such that it does not require posting notices in newspapers, but leverages the town website and other electronic media, subject to state law, which I think there might be a state law in there we have to worry about, but
Right.
that's it. We don't worry about the drafting language quite yet. So we work through the categories, come up with our changes, get additional public input, say end of February timeframe, early March. And then we move into more of the drafting stage, the conforming stage, where we kind of have to work through and actually kind of get it all in. And also use that as the opportunity to make sure it really does all work together at that stage. And there may be some, everything we have to change, at that point. And then, of course, once it's actually in the charter, we would do what's required by our charge, but I think that's the law, that we then actually present the revised charter that we're going to recommend to the public before the May meeting, such that we can get additional feedback and then get it in by the May 13th. So conceptually, that is the proposed, thinking about it. And I think this will help us get better discussions as a group by really thinking about it by like topic. I also think that it will give us the opportunity for additional public engagement. It does require that we potentially accelerate timing a little bit, because if we want to have a public meeting at the end of February or early March, then that means we need to have some substantial work done by then. But realistically, we need to do that anyways. And there is some potential for rework, where we might go through with these things, but we might notice a new issue as we work through the conforming language and drafting that we might have to revisit. So there's a slight possibility for rework. But that's the overall idea, and it's illustrated by what was in the backup, but also have your printouts here regarding the input that we've received to date as of yesterday, based on the Board of Selectmen representing Selectman Gerber's input, also Town Clerk Betsy Brown's input, the summer intern input, the various public comments input that we've gotten is all organized here in proposed categories. Once again, these are proposed that we could choose to move into different buckets and categories. And as an example, if we were to scroll down, thank you, Commissioner DeWitt, we might get to the fact that like the positions, under positions, there's process. Yep. And that's the type of thing where if we keep going down to process, that's the type of thing where that's a topic we probably ought to talk about now at the start of the process, really figuring out what do we want to do. And that might be work that we do today or potentially the third. And then I think the idea of the notice, using that as an example, could be a good one to kind of cut our teeth on, on the third, where I think could be relatively easy, but we can kind of work through it and see. But conceptually, that's the point. And in the sheet, you can also see that some are required to be discussed and and most are not. The ones that are required, of course, were the ones given to us by the Board of Selectpersons already. So that's the idea there. Welcome additional feedback or questions.
Great idea to me. It seems logical. Great.
Yeah, this list is wonderful. I just want to say I really appreciate your time and effort putting this together, because this is kind of what I had envisioned, and you, rather than envisioning it, you did the real work. So I very much appreciate that. And I think this is going to give us, it'll let us get into some categories where we, like you said, some of these should be low hanging fruit, and other ones we need to, take offline and do some homework individually and come back to the board, and 3 or 4 people do individual work and bring it back to the commission and help give us information to help us come to a decision.
Yeah, I would echo Commissioner DeWitt's comment. I think that's great work, and thank you so much for putting that together, Commissioner Treshik. One of the I guess an overriding question that I know I've discussed with Commissioner DeWitt in the last meeting is there elements of the charter that cannot be revised, right? Because they're statutory. right? That cannot be touched, right? So in the spectrum of review, shouldn't those elements be automatically carved out? Because you can't modify them
Yeah.
or mollify them?
I spoke to Attorney Buxbaum about this. It's just, he said there's not much. We pretty much have carte blanche.
Okay.
I guess there are some very specific things, but
By and large, you have a free hand to change things
Yep.
as needed.
Yep.
Okay.
that was the guidance that I received from
Okay.
Attorney Buxbaum.
And I would just say, Commissioner DeWitt, I'm happy also if it works for the commission as we get more input, and I'm assuming we'll get more input from this list, but I'm happy to get that organized, for us so we can, assess it overall, because I do think that we'll get input that will be largely related to the particular board and commission, but I think a lot of people will also add in other topics that are not directly related to their particular board and commission. But if that works for the commission, then happy to do that. So we get to a, relatively clean starting place, by mid-December. So that the December 17th meeting, I think it would be, that maybe we can, in theory, have a quote unquote final list at that point.
At least the bulk of it, right?
I think that's a great goal. Yes,
Yep.
I would. I think that would be great. I just wanted to bring, I just noticed this. There is one of the requirement, First Selectman Gerber recommends using the 2022 revisions. Attorney Buxbaum addressed that with me, and he goes, I want to revise that a little bit. He says, I want you to have the final version in your hand. He says, but he goes, the version you should really be spending time with is the track changes version, that red line version. He says, because he goes, you'll drive yourself crazy taking the old document and the new document. So I asked Jen Carpenter to get the actual Word document with the track changes on it, so that we can really use that doc. If we, maybe we can highlight and go through and address each one of the changes in that way.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
This is a very detailed question, but if we talk about notices next time, which I think to me seemed obvious, papers don't make sense. I noticed on the chart your son did that every other town requires a newspaper notice, even a town that redid their charter in 2022. So I'm wondering if you can ask Jason if that's a state law. I doubt it is, but it might be required by state law.
Just a comment on, I've been talking to kind of my network around this. I was sitting down with Representative McCarthy Vahey just to understand, and that was a good example. And she said, actually, there is, according to her, there is a state law, but we could also write the language such that, we will meet the requirements of the state law, at a minimum, but
Until they come to their
until they
senses,
don't, when they
right?
change, then we can use the website, something like that.
Yeah.
It gives us the opportunity to move to the preferred option once the state law is changed, if that's in fact a limitation.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm wondering in general if we have questions, so as we're going through it, I guess we'll compile questions for Jason because he won't necessarily be at every meeting, right?
No, good point. The arrangement we've come to is, yes, neither the town attorney nor Attorney Buxbaum will be at every one of our meetings. But if we walk out of here this evening and say, oh, I have 3 questions for Attorney Buxbaum, we can send those questions to him, and we can either ask him to attend our next meeting or respond to email, whatever we want. But it's going to be on a as required basis.
Thank you.
Be sure there is a state law that requires newspaper.
Yeah, I guess
that.
I'm surprised at that, because I have to tell you, when we did the purchasing policy the purchasing policy used to say, if you're gonna put out an RFQ to buy trees, you have to put the request in a local newspaper, and we took that out. And we didn't see any problem for taking that out in regards to, purchasing anyway.
That just to not to interrupt Commissioner DeWitt, but that's kind of my point. What Commissioner Wackerman just said. If it's a requirement to, notice in the newspaper, then it's a statutory requirement that we can't change, but we can certainly comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's I'm always worried about falling into a trap, not a trap, so to speak, but a condition that we're mollifying a document, a term, an article that is unmodifiable.
Yeah, right.
I think probably we won't come across a provision that we can't change any words of, you know what I mean? There'll be state statutes that require a certain thing and and then Jason will see our red lines and he'll be able to say, oh no, you can't take that newspaper out or whatever. So hopefully that's how we can have.
Yeah, that I would love that check and balance, Commissioner Wackerman, because that's exactly what I'm driving at. Commissioner Treshick did a wonderful job organizing us. I think it's a beautiful jumping off point, but at the same time, when you're distilling the data down and trying to, create the best possible outcome, you certainly don't want to, go down a road that you have to come back and double back and do the work again because your presumptions are erroneous. That's my only concern. But if we have that check and balance, maybe that's a very good way, an adroit way of handling it.
Agreed. Why I like this list and the overall recommendations here, and I think they certainly should be on our website under the files, the attachments. And I think we should be revising this every time it gets revised, because again, in the just full disclosure, guys, this is what we're working on. You want to log on 24 hours a day, you can look at, see how we're parsing this out. And if there's something you don't like about this, then please, send us a recommendation, send us a note. The other thing that I asked Selectman Gerber just yesterday via email, I'd like to carve out just maybe a quarter of a page of his newsletter, and just every week put in a couple sentences about here's what's going on with charter revision, because listen, I'm a sales guy. I think we have to sell this.
Mm-hmm.
We have to tell everybody what we're going to do, and we're going to tell them how we're doing it, and we're going to tell them again. And I think if people see this every week, every 2 weeks, whatever we do, I think hopefully they'll read this and go, wow, that sounds like they're doing the right thing. Or wow, sounds like that DeWitt guy made a really stupid recommendation. I'm going to call in next week and tell him so. That's the kind of data that I think we could use to our advantage, and a good way to propagate it is with Selectman Gerber's newsletter. So I haven't gotten confirmation that he's allowing that, but that was a recommendation I made to him just yesterday.
That's great.
Yeah, I would say Commissioner DeWitt, really appreciate that. That's a lot of the feedback I've been getting on, like, how do you over communicate this process? Because a lot of people will only engage at little parts at times here or there, and not really understand kind of all the work that's gone into it. And so I think that will be really helpful once we get to the end.
And have a link to our page on every time you do it, so people can easily see.
Oh, yeah.
Great. That's great.
I would have a link to the webpage, and I would also have a link to the link that says send us a note. Tell us what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Question.
I don't think you can do that too many times. Sorry.
That's all right. I interrupted you.
No, go ahead, Jerry, please.
On the notice provision, I forget what Betsy had said, but is it that compliance with the newspaper issue is a formality that makes it difficult for her to comply with getting notice out because of the lack of newspaper and the cost associated with it? Or is it the ineffectiveness of it because people don't get a newspaper or don't read the newspaper for notices anymore?
I think it's the former, but the latter is a big issue, right?
The latter's the big issue. I mean, it's almost talking about, you can still comply with a state statute by going to the paper and publishing in the paper. But really if you authorize Betsy to, at the same time, send the email, or do a different type of notice. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what is the purpose of the change, or what's the need for the change. If it's a statute and you have to comply with the statute, keep putting it in the paper, then we have no choice.
Yeah.
I would say
I
we,
think her recommend, if you're seeing my screen,
Yeah, I'm reading it,
Yeah.
yeah.
the notice shall be sent by mail. It's specifically about RTM members.
Right.
I thought, when I spoke to her about this, and again, the reason we did it in the purchasing policy is that, you're right. I don't get a newspaper anymore. I look at everything online, right? And I don't think this allows for an online version of that. So I think it was just the availability and the practicality of having to, the practicality, and then maybe I'll use the word nuisance. I don't mean to make it sound onerous or anything, but having to do one more thing, the town clerk having to do one more thing, except, I have to notify everybody in the RTM that something's changing, and I have to put it in a newspaper that nobody's gonna read.
Right.
I mean, Betsy's change doesn't even, I call her Betsy, she was the babysitter for my kids. The notice shall be published at least 5 days before the meeting, but her proposed change does not suggest the mode or method of publication.
Right.
So,
She wants that freedom, I think, to just publish it on the website is how I was reading it, but you're right, it's not completely explained.
Yeah, I think, I don't wanna speak on her behalf, but I think she intentionally left it vague. I mean, it basically goes from a very, very detailed,
right,
we have to shall be sent by mail at least, and then a copy in a newspaper, and she's gone to, all I have to do is tell you, I'm gonna notify you guys.
I'm not saying that I'm a strict constructionist or whatever, but vague doesn't always work well, does it?
Yeah. Then we can certainly ask her for clarification about that, so.
Commissioner DeWitt, if you don't mind going back to the preliminary list of topics. So if this is going to be posted, and I am assuming all the sources will also need to be posted, correct? And which I think is fine.
That is the intention, yes.
I would just say that when you're working with, I don't remember the gentleman's name, the IT person you're working with around.
Yes, Mr. Kelly, yes.
Can we come up with a standard naming convention for file names? If we're gonna start posting the public comments, because we need a way to reference it back. So you can add that to your list of things to talk to him about.
Yeah, good point.
You gotta figure out how I did it, but.
Yeah, file naming convention. I was poking them about getting the emails. So this is how the conversation went. I was poking them like I want all these emails to be up on the website. And he said, oh, guess what? I have a better idea. And the better idea was, well, then why don't we not use email? So I think.
Where does so we fill out that form, where does it go? So we can access it?
Yeah, I asked the question this evening. I said, can that response be automatically generate a text file or something and drop it right in that folder? And he said, no. So I know that all of the emails we've received already, I asked, can they automatically go in there? The answer was no. So Commissioner Biagini has forwarded all those emails to Jen, so she's doing something with them to create these individual files. So I have that, I've got that action.
But the intent is all of the emails will be there such that if we reference them as sources, the public can find them.
Yep.
Be able to cross-reference, yes.
But you're saying the naming convention needs to be what you can.
Yeah, and then we need a way to like naturally figure it out, you know.
I would think like date and name.
I would think naming DeWitt, like the thing I sent you today, DeWitt 1119 email. And if I send you another email, it would be DeWitt 1120 email.
Well, it may be more than one DeWitt, so you wanna. Comment.
do you wanna consider
Or do you want to put a comment in there?
taking off the last column of required to discuss? If you're gonna publish it to the public, the people who are giving their input and we tell them, no, we're not required to discuss it, we could just take that off and we don't have to tell them no.
Well, it's only, is it first selectman or board of selectmen that's required?
The Board of Selectmen is required.
So if the other two select persons provide input that is approved by the board, then we have to address that too.
Right.
But I think if they just provide it via the email, then we don't technically have to respond to it.
I mean, we know we have to respond,
Right.
so all I'm saying is,
That's a fair
the
point.
people who are out there trying to do good, you know, and trying to have their input, and then we just say, no. You know, it's like you're kind
Well-
of negative to a
Yeah,
positive.
that's,
And it could
It's
be-
unnecessary.
optics don't look good.
No, it's fine, we can remove
We have a
that.
sensitive side.
The way we would do that is we would just filter down by first selectman and by town clerk.
Yeah.
Because those are the two sources of input that were passed by the board that we do have to consider.
Right.
Right. I will say, I kinda like that last column, because I really wanna make sure that everyone who submits something, including this list of people that we're gonna send this to, hopefully in the next 24, 48 hours, right? Do not expect a response.
Okay,
Oh, good.
Alright.
So the last column will tell them that they won't get a.
Oh, this says here,
required to discuss.
now maybe we should be changed to required to,
Auto reply, why don't we have an auto reply?
respond?
Fair, okay.
Mary,
You stated accurately, the only two pieces of data that we have to formally respond to is the first selectman's recommendations and the town clerk's recommendations.
Not respond to, we have to discuss it.
We have to discuss it, there's a difference. I think the statute says,
Well, okay, then discuss and respond.
But I mean, we can have an auto reply to that form so that everybody gets a thank you message. I don't think there's a problem doing that, saying thanks for your input, we're excited that you're interested in getting in touch or something, I don't know, just something nice that
I think,
feel nice that they, yeah.
yeah,
I think that we should absolutely do that. I just don't want, you know, I'll pick on Ms. Braun here. I just don't want Ms. Braun to think that we are going to respond to her recommendation, her specific email about everything that she, you know.
actually, the first selectman's requirement is required to comment on each recommendation when it submits its report to the Board of
So-
Selectmen.
Right.
Okay.
That's.
So discuss is even less definitive,
Mm.
must comment.
Right.
Required to comment.
The hard comment back to the board of selectmen, right?
Right.
Okay.
Now, one question I had, there's more than a couple inputs that say commission input. Was
Yeah,
that something we received, or was that the commissioner who was, the fire commissioner who was in the meeting with us last week?
No, I had a source tab on that, and I mentioned there, that's some input I've received also from other conversations, you know, with members of the public. So I can take those out too, if that's helpful.
Well,
like
no,
our-
I guess, but I guess my question for discussion is this. So again, and I can't remember her name, but the fire commissioner, one of the fire commissioners came before us last week, last meeting.
That is included here.
Okay, but does she speak for the commission, or does she speak as an individual taxpayer? I would think she was speaking as an individual taxpayer who just happens to be a commissioner. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know if she is responding to,
Officially.
No, I think she
Commission.
was, officially responding, I think, and I have the notes here. If I
Okay.
remember, Dorothy Brennan,
yes,
am I right? Did I
Yes.
recall that right? Yeah, not to get into the substance of her discussion, they were all salient points, but she did say that she wanted to think about and look at retaining talent, and there's some economic impact about keeping, that was, the firemen firefighters, excuse me, in the town. They have to be residents of the town. And the second part had to deal with input from the fire commission on budgets, if you recall. Right, that she wanted materially be able to help, decipher, have approval over budgets.
Right, no,
If I
remember the conversation.
if I remember correctly, I'm not 100% sure, but I
No,
think that's right.
I think that's accurate. My question is, so I'm gonna go right back to the list here real quick. The fire commission. So if she is not the chairman of the fire commission, so the chairman of the fire commission is gonna get a note from me in 24 hours saying, hey, we would love your comments on charter revision. If she is not that person, then I think her input is an individual input as a taxpayer. And the chairman of the fire commissioner speaks on behalf of the commission.
I agree.
She's not the chair.
I know, right, no, right.
Right, the presumption.
So I wanna be careful that we say commission input isn't an individual person on the commission, because I think there's 7 people on the commission, but whatever. The other 5 or 6 might be like, well, I don't agree with anything she just said, right?
Well, no,
and that would be bad if that was labeled as commission input.
The presumption is that Commissioner Brennan would have gone to the chair of the fire commission and, verbalized her concerns, right? And then the commissioner in his or her discretion would then give us that input, whether we send it formally or informally. That would be my presumption.
Yeah. I just want to be very clear, as someone stated, if this is going to be in the local, in the domain, I just want to make sure that if it's really commission input, it was the commission input, not an individual input.
I agree with you, Commissioner DeWitt. That's exactly the way I'm looking at it as well. I don't know if the other commissioners have a strong opinion on that topic.
I will revise accordingly. Got it.
Wonderful. And then feel free to send that to Commissioner Biagini and myself, and we can get we'll have Ms. Carpenter put it up on the website.
I'll do. One other suggestion, if we're planning on using this also somewhat as an organizational document as we go, I would recommend we actually add one more column, which it is, have we just discussed it along with the date?
Mm-hmm.
And so we can also use that as a way to chart our progress.
That's a great idea.
Agree.
Terms?
Agree.
You may have to go to landscape, Eric.
I know.
When it has to go to 11 by 17, that's when we're in a real problem.
Right.
And landscape.
Just print it larger.
I know.
I had my paralegal do that.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I wasn't reading what you said.
Yeah. Well, wonderful discussion. So maybe just as one last thing, so I have to create the December 3rd agenda. Do we want to be so bold as to tackle one of these in our December 3rd?
Yeah.
Like maybe I love the idea of process, because I think if we can hammer through these, what looks like 10 or 12 things, I think that's going to set us up for everything else we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was, so as I thought through it, and I'm not saying we'll get all of these done by in one meeting by any means, but I thought process, notice, and then like choose a topic that's relatively self-contained. I thought ethics, potentially, where we have
an expert.
And we have that's my way, have an ethics expert.
And she's sitting right across from the table.
It's something that we do, that we have been asked by the Board of Select Persons to review and align the standards of conduct and ethics. And so that could be one, whether or not we get to the 3rd versus the 17th, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it'd be good to be thinking of a couple meetings ahead, such that I'm assuming we're going to appoint kind of a leader of each discussion, so that person then can start, that commissioner can then start to prepare, and such. So I thought ethics might be a good one. The the terms of office also was one that I felt was relatively self-contained. And it's probably, it's gonna be a deeper discussion, but that one could be also another one to kind of think about as we start to line up the work. Going
I think that terms is gonna be heavily influenced by the input we get from that big list. I think there'll be a lot of thought about those kind of topics. Like I said, the one that you mentioned process before, because I think my expectation of the big list, you know, that I'm seem to be referring to it as, is gonna be much more very specific about, you know, my individual committee or my individual department, whatever. But the process, hopefully we've kind of heard all the process kind of questions already. So I thought that might be a really good one. And again, I feel like that's gonna drive us through all the rest of the topics.
So just process, or do we also have notice or?
Notice of meetings, notice of ordinance,
Board and commission.
I'm good with ethics or notices. I'll defer to Commissioner Biagini, because I'll tell you what, that first one, should the scope of responsibilities be expanded, that feels like that could take 25 days if we really let it, right?
For ethics.
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of work done on this in the background, so I actually think it's gonna be a pretty easy topic to blow through.
I think so.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we put all three on the December agenda, third agenda.
Okay,
And if we can't finish, we can't.
ethics, process, and notice.
I'm gonna ask,
Momentum.
I'm gonna ask a dumb question, but when we talk about process, what are we referring to?
There was input, we had a number of areas of input from public around how we should do our work.
How we should do our work.
Yes.
Process of how we should do our work.
Do that.
Is this an example of that process?
Okay, thank you.
That is an example of what we've agreed our process will be.
Right.
I think the process has other comments too around the key comments were,
Thank you.
we should solicit input from boards, we're gonna
Right.
do that, we've already discussed that.
Yes, right?
We are going to separate the questions, we don't have that authority, but Board of Select persons already said they want to do that. We should have a lot of regular communications, Commissioner DeWitt said he's gonna do that.
Right. Okay.
What's the foundation? We've kind of talked about that.
Right.
But I think we'll kind of get into the weeds on that as we go forward. Go slow, I'm not really sure there's an action, and then more public input. I think we've tentatively agreed that we'll try for another meeting and look for other opportunities for public input. I mean,
Right.
that's how we do our work. I mean, hopefully that's a relatively short discussion.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, agree.
Over CRC objectives.
Excuse me?
CRC objectives, they skipped over that one.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. You're right. That one's a little harder. Yeah, that's the hardest one. I totally missed that.
Oh, we'll just.
I know in the first, our first meeting, well, I guess it was our public session meeting, I did state kind of my objectives and goals as the chairman. I'd be happy to recirculate that through to all the commissioners, and if we're good with those, maybe we can adopt them as our goals and objectives. Cause I'm a big fan of goals and objectives, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Sure.
And Commissioner Ritt, the only other topic that I thought maybe we could start on soon, not, once again, not necessarily the third, but the finance area. Potentially your area of expertise. You mentioned before, like a purchasing policy, that's kind of what we've been asked to look at. What are the purchasing recommendations? The fact that there's an assessment system that apparently is outdated at this point, that needs to be removed. And probably the more meaty one is capital planning, and should we codify that in the charter? But that might be another one, relatively self-contained topic that we might be able to attack in December.
Intern benchmarking, okay. Should this be, yeah. I definitely have an opinion on that, yes, so.
You would.
And I will, I'll also speak to my friend Lori Charlton about that, because I know she has a very specific opinion when we solicit her comments. Okay, any other thought? Again, this list, I can't say it enough. I appreciate your time and input, and I know you're gonna have a lot more time and input into this list, so appreciate you keeping us updated, Eric.
You're welcome.
So process on that. Update it, send it to the chair and the vice chair.
Yes, please.
Process? Okay, got it. Okay, understood.
And Commissioner DeWitt, do we have timing when Jennifer's, with the deputy Carpenter's gonna send us the Word document? The one that we,
I did not get, I had asked for the original
the red
finished
line.
document in
and the-
Word,
And the
and
red
that
line.
took a little time, because I think the former attorney, whose name is Attorney Mednick, sent it to her, so I haven't heard, so
Okay,
I don't have any timing on that, but once I get it, I will certainly pass that along.
okay.
Okay. Okay, agenda item number 6 is public comment. Is there anyone from the public in the room with you all?
Judy Ewing.
Good evening, Ms. Ewing. Do you have any comment?
Yes, I have a few. First of all, the last time I met, a couple of years ago.
Need a mic?
Judy,
you wanna come up here?
98 Sasko Hill
Why don't
Terrace.
you come to the table?
mic?
So the mic's up
Please.
there. So we-
Plus then the screen can see you too.
Thank you.
When the other, were back to back at the beginning.
At the beginning,
because there was a lot of people in the
Sure,
room.
at the beginning,
in this room.
okay.
Um,
And I would have been happy to have that if we hadn't had 3 people on or 4 people.
Yeah.
well, it was, I think, a bad time of year.
Mhm.
It was right after an election and also some of us wanted notices back to know if there were meetings or not, and we thought we were getting notices from the town and we didn't get the notices, so
Oh.
I knew there was a meeting, so I called and found out. I still have not heard back from anybody regarding notices. I had to call Jen Carpenter to make sure the meeting was on.
Did you do the thing with the new system where you signed up to get notices?
I
for-
signed up, and in fact, I heard from the public, from the librarian. She told me I didn't send or something,
Mm.
and then she said she'd do it for me. I
Mhm.
still didn't hear
Mhm.
anything, so I'd have to check on that. Sometimes it's a good thing to ask the department heads to come because they know about state statutes that would change the charter, and sometimes the information doesn't get around. For one thing, the tree warden, I think it used to be every year, now it's every 2 years, or it was every 2 years, now it's every 1 year.
1 year.
That was a change. The other thing which created some controversy was regarding the health department and the public works. Public works is no longer required to have an environmentalist, I guess, or an engineer or something, whatever Mrs. Braun has told you about the issue. But it was very controversial because it was about half and half as to whether or not they should have an engineer or an environmental person. And that was a change of the statute. And the other one was the health department was no longer required to have a doctor at the head of it, or somebody with a doctor's degree, or because the trend has been going more toward administrative people to be in charge of departments. That's why the state statutes were changed. I looked at the list that was provided. The list that was provided to you was of everything that could ever meet, like even an advisory committee or everything. None of those are in the charter. So if you go through the list, you'll see that some of them don't even exist anymore. I noticed that the strategic plan committee hasn't been meeting for 2 years. The facilities, what do you call it?
The
FTC.
facilities commission no longer meets, that's right.
That no longer meets, and it's not in the charter, it never was, it's part of the town code. So it never was in the charter, and if somebody wanted to press the point that it should be, that's another issue, but you don't have to contact some of the names on that. I mean, I think probably 10 of them don't even have to be contacted, at least, just from eyeballing them, because no committees or advisory committees are in the charter. Those are all appointed by the first selectman and other, maybe by legislation or something. So you should go through the list before you send your.
Good idea.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, I think that the thought behind that was,
If
can't
you're,
hurt to get input.
you're in your chair of the
And-
group, I think you should be.
If, in the rare case that somebody on the, if there were a facilities commission, if there was some legitimate change that someone in the facilities commission really wanted to have in, I just don't want to not send a very simple email and ask for.
they're not in the charter, it's not a charter.
You might
They
have a
could be.
town related.
You could add them.
Was set up by legislation through the RTM. And I think the things in the town code were not discussed at the last charter meeting, because we ran out of time, for one thing, to get it on the ballot, but if somebody feels strongly about something, they should come forth and say so, but things that are in the town code are not now in the charter. Okay? Okay. You mentioned bringing in the town manager. We don't have a town manager, was just an example that you gave. We don't have a town manager. Okay? There was a lot of discussion about the budget process. And there were examples of how Brenda in particular wanted to change it around, and a lot of discussion focused on the budget process, so I don't know, I can't remember what changes were made. I wrote notes, I can't read them. I asked, I had reason to contact the town clerk, and I mentioned that the thing on the official bonds was not included in the charter, and that you had in particular mentioned that perhaps it should be. I said, I don't even know what it means, and she wrote me back and she said, it has to do with errors and omissions, that it protects
Yes,
certain town officials for our errors and omissions. So you might wanna pursue that with the attorney,
we are absolutely making sure that's in. There's
Okay.
no doubt, I mean, no doubt in my mind, I'm sure Commissioner Wackerman would agree with me 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the question about you're gonna discuss the terms of office, and I think you and I have discussed that. The problem before with the terms of office was that the terms of office of certain officials are supposed to begin on the third Monday, the third Monday of November. And the wording was so confusing, and also some people weren't ready on the third Monday of November, they wanted to make it the fourth Monday, but it conflicts with the RTM meeting to start to organize their annual meetings.
Right.
So that was changed, and I feel strongly about that, and I hope you do too, that it should be what Mr. Mendick wrote, the attorney wrote, to straighten it out. I think he made a good stab at that. So that's all I have to say at this point.
All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you, Ms. Ewing. Is there anyone else in the room for public comment?
Did we lose my
Wanna
phone?
talk?
Okay, great.
I don't see anyone online unless I'm missing something, unless Prue has a comment. And her mic's not working anyway, so I guess she doesn't get the comment.
You can type it in.
Yeah, she can type it in, right?
I have one
Okay.
comment
Oh, you wanna
about the notice. There were two different dates on it. It said Tuesday, November 19th, and Wednesday, November 19th, on the same piece of paper. That's why you need somebody to look at things before they go out, and make sure that they're not confusing. Because somebody might wanna come tomorrow night on Wednesday
Yeah.
Oh, right.
if they looked at the website.
Point, thank
Yeah.
you.
That says that.
So,
You can
Yeah.
blame me for that more than likely.
No, I think Truth sends them out, don't they?
Let's see. Wow, nope, the meeting I sent out, the agenda that I came up with, I put Wednesday.
mm.
Oh.
As much as I'd like to blame Proof for it, it's all my fault.
Somebody else blamed her.
Now we know we better check your work, huh?
Yeah, you absolutely better check my work, that's a good point. So,
Okay.
okay. Seeing no other comment, I'll take a motion, unless there's anything else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I so moved to adjourn.
Ms. Wackerman, all in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
happy
Thank you all
Thanksgiving,
very
everybody.
much. Sorry I
Thanksgiving.
didn't, sorry I
Have a great
wasn't in person
Thanksgiving.
and happy Thanksgiving.
Safe
Great.
travels.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
everybody.
Mr.
Great to
Blanco.
see everybody.
Bye-bye.